Welcome back, everybody. We are two dudes talking 80s. I'm John. That's Lewis.
Hello.
And today's going to be a little bit different because we're actually, we have so much fondness for the 80s. We decided we were going to try something a little bit different today. And we're going to actually talk about things that we hated in the 80s. Now, we might have grown to love it and then love it today, but back in the 80s, we hate it. Maybe we still hate it today. Which is kind of unusual for us because usually everything 80s for us is good. So this was kind of a hard list. Lou, did you have some difficulties with it as well?
I did. I mean, there was a couple of things that immediately came to mind. So there's a few things that I've got to talk about, but there was some that I actually had to dig.
All right. Well, if you don't mind, I'm gonna go ahead and start off with my list. This is one of the things, if you lived through the 80s, now you're old, is you have to make lists, otherwise you don't remember anything. And this one might piss some people off. But my first pick is going to be Beetlejuice. And I'll be honest, I actually saw it in theaters. I remember I was working at Citibank at the time. I went with a couple coworkers. I was totally excited. It was one of my things. I love Michael Keaton. I love the mixture of horror and comedy. I'm like, this is going to be my thing. I had high expectations for it, and I hated it. And it just did not appeal to me. It didn't do a thing for me. And I've gone back and, well, maybe I was having a bad day, whatever the case may be, and revisit it, still hate it. So yeah, I know a lot of people love it, and I get that, but it just does not appeal to me. Does nothing for me. So the first thing I would hate from the 80s would be Beetlejuice.
That's an interesting pick. I haven't watched that movie in eons. Actually, I thought it might have even been 90s, but anyway, I haven't seen it in a long time. I remember liking it. I remember, thinking that it was pretty good. Nothing really stands out hugely in it, so I can't say, yeah, oh my gosh, it was an amazing movie. It was okay for me.
Not my thing. I wish I loved it. I wanted to love it, but didn't work for me. And I kind of find that I'm kind of that way with pretty much anything Tim Burton does. For whatever reason, I know it's not 80s, but The Nightmare Before Christmas is another one where I've tried it multiple times to watch it, get into it, and it just never resonates with me. So
Interesting.
just
That one I actually liked. I'm not usually a big fan of musicals, but that one I really liked. So cool. Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. You'll piss a lot of people off with that one.
nothing new for me. What do you got? What's your first thing you hated in the 80s?
All right. So I think we've spoken about this one before off camera, but Air Supply. Hated them with a passion. I remember this kid in middle school wearing this big brass belt buckle that said Air Supply, and it's just like, oh my God, this guy is like the biggest wimp. He likes Air Supply. He's advertising he likes Air Supply. I hated them, absolutely hated them. And now I'm considering buying their greatest hits because I heard like one of their songs on the radio, and it's like, yeah, that sort of doesn't suck. It's taken me back. Yeah, I'll listen to that again. So it's just really interesting how your tastes sort of change, and nostalgia really comes into play, and can change your perspective on things a little.
I do remember Air Supply. I don't think I hated them like you did. And I remember a couple of the gals we went to middle school with, they wore those Qantas airline shirts because it was Australian. And they were wearing that to the concert. And if I remember correctly, I think they were playing at the Circle Star Theater. You remember that place in San Carlos with the
Oh yeah, I
rotating
remember.
stage? You ever go
Yes,
there?
I never did. I never saw a single show there. But
No.
I do remember that place well, and driving by it lots of times on Highway 101.
Yeah, I saw a few shows there, but I used to see comedy. Like I saw Gallagher there, I saw George Carlin, and I think the last one I saw was Sam Kinison was there.
Oh
So
wow.
they'd have comedians, and it was kind of cool for them to rotate the stage, and so you always get a pretty good view. But I never had the hatred of Air Supply. It's nice to see that you've grown out of that and accepted your softer side. It's nice to know, Lewis, that you're not all out of love
Yes, yes,
for Air
indeed.
Supply.
Although I don't think I'd still advertise them on my midsection with a big brass belt buckle.
You know, you have to have brass something else if you're, supporting Air Supply down that nether region. All right.
But
I'm gonna go with the. Here's my next pick for the '80s. I grew up. I loved professional wrestling, and I grew up. Me and my father used to go. God, for a while there, when I was, in my, like 7 or 8, we would go every weekend practically to the Cow Palace to watch professional wrestling. And so, I'll go through periods where I'll get into it and watch it, and then go through periods where I just can't do it. But probably the biggest time for pro wrestling in the '80s, maybe ever, the star was Hulk Hogan. And I hate Hulk Hogan. I used to get so frustrated when he was popular because it was the same thing. What was it? Say your prayers, eat your vitamins and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, I eat like 20 pounds of steroids a day, dude. Not buying the whole vitamin thing. But obviously I get it. Some of them do steroids, or a lot of them do, to have those kind of incredible, superhero like physiques. But I just thought the guy was so incredibly boring as a pro wrestler. It was, you saw one match that he did and you saw all of them. Like, it was the same thing over and over, and he really couldn't even wrestle. And so it was a huge thing. I know the WrestleManias were very popular when he was there, and his WrestleManias with Ultimate Warrior, Andre the Giant, Randy Savage. But God, I hated Hulk Hogan, and never could get into it. It was incredibly popular, and boy, did I hate Hulk Hogan.
yeah, he was it was all marketing, man. I mean, I guess all of that stuff was really marketing. I remember when I wasn't into wrestling. I totally remember WWF and you being way into it with Kurt and Mike and whatnot. And one time being dragged to go see wrestling over at the Cow Palace, and it's you have to appreciate what they do, right? Because it still is very physical on your body. It's stunt work. It was super obvious to me. It's like, this is all just crap. This is all fake, absolutely fake. And I want to say that it was the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan that we saw at the Cow Palace that one time doing the wrestling. And Hulk is okay. He didn't bother me too much as Hulkamaniacs and what you gonna do when Ulster's coming for you. Yeah,
Well, I
whatever.
didn't watch it. You have that routine down pretty well. I wasn't even going to attempt it.
But yeah, so I could take him either way. I was always a Ultimate Warrior fan myself.
Good job. Well, who you got next, or what do you have next?
All right, let me take a look at my old man list so that, again, as you had brought up before, I don't forget what to talk about. I'll leave the next music act for a little bit later. This wasn't really something that came into play in the 80s. It I think actually started in the 70s, but I remember it most in the 80s, and I thought it was stupid and I hated them. The push down openers on like Coke cans and soft drinks. So I remember what the rationale was is they used to have the little tab openers, right? That you'd open the little tab and you have like this little key stuck in your hand, you throw it away, whatever, and you drink your soda. And I guess that somebody had decided, from what I remember, that that was too much of a hazard, that you could cut your finger on it or something. So they come up with this little press tab thing that's like totally like more dangerous to cut your finger with. It's like, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. And I remember ending up having to get like the back of a fork or the back of a knife to actually have to punch the stupid thing open, because you could never actually get it open with your finger, and if you did, you would likely cut it. So again, I believe that started in the 70s. I remember it mainly in the 80s, and I think it might have ended in the 80s.
Ended in terms of, isn't that still what they have today?
No, they have the little open tab now. I mean, it's the same sort of type of thing where they have the perforated opening and but you have a little almost like a lever that you open up the can with that actually pokes the perforation down into the can. Before it was just your finger.
Gotcha. All right. Well, a strong stance on that one. I don't even really remember it that well. So I'll just take your word for it that apparently many injuries, possibly even fatal ones, were taking place throughout the 80s due to those cans. So this one, I think I've been a little too controversial. So let me mellow it down a little bit,
Yes,
because
do.
probably everybody hates this, but it was a huge hit, and people forget how huge of a hit it was. And I'm gonna go with the Bobby McFerrin song, "Don't Worry, Be Happy." I don't know if a song that's called "Don't Worry, Be Happy" could make you feel more violent and angry than that song, but that probably got me more violent and angry than anything Exodus or Slayer ever did. So yeah, that would be one of the things in the 80s I hated it very much. It seems like it got played all the time. And oh god, to this day I still can't hear it. So yeah, that would be one of the rare things I hate in the 80s was Bobby McFerrin's "Don't Worry, Be Happy." And I think Pharrell kind of carried that on to later generations with his version of "Happy." So I don't know what is with these songs where they're trying to make you happy and go lucky and all that fun stuff, but it doesn't work. Just pisses me off.
That's a very good pick. I remember that song when it came out. I also remember not liking it. I still don't like it. I still hear it and it still makes me cringe. I did think it was creative, right? I thought it was sort of neat that it was just vocals and nothing else on that song. So I thought from that aspect it was sort of cool. But yeah, it's definitely not something I'd ever be listening to on my well, at the time Walkman and or anything else. Yeah, so very good pick.
I appreciate that. What do you got next for me?
What do I got next? All right. I was, a fan of these for women, but not so much for men. The half shirts in the 80s. And I actually
Guilty.
remember I actually remember it's like these are stupid. These are just it makes no sense. And I remember actually trying it once. I had like a shirt that I was gonna like throw away and or something, and I ended up clipping it and putting it on. It's like, yeah, no, this looks stupid. I'd never walk into public like this. So yeah, I'm all about equal rights, but no bueno.
I did wear mine. I remember wearing it, but I didn't wear it out for anything. I wore it for PE class. So yeah, I did cringe. I'm cringing thinking back to it, and I did have the half shirt that I used to rock for the in middle school. I didn't take it to high school, but in middle school, I remember wearing it to PE class. Mr. Nishikawa, our favorite gym teacher, as I'm sure you well remember him, and as you used to get GC for gum chew, and but yeah. So I am guilty of that fashion faux pas.
Oh, Betancourt, you make me so mad. I give you GC for gumshoe. God bless him, man. He was awesome.
He
Hilarious.
ruled.
Good honorable mention. Um, so anybody that knows John, I am willing to pay $50 if you are able to produce a picture of John in a half shirt. That would like maybe make the rest of my life.
I don't think it exists. Thank God there weren't cameras everywhere like we have today. It was just in middle school and just for PE. So I don't think any. If we can chew gum, damn well no one brought a camera out there. So all right, so you went fashion, and I'm gonna kind of go for a twofer here. Um, like you said, one looked good on one sex and didn't look good on the other sex. So I'm gonna hit both sexes because we had some awful pants in the 80s. And
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go
okay,
ahead.
um,
Hit both sexes, man.
yeah, hey, hit them both. So we'll go ahead and for the women, what was up? I don't know what they called them. I don't know if they had a name, but those pants that the women wore, where they basically had a zipper that was started in the front and went all the way to the back, right through the crotch.
Ah, I think
That
those were
whole
dittos,
crotch
right?
area, and they'd separate. You know, you could take. I guess you could take them off. I never owned a pair, but take them off and separate them, and you'd have two legs and half of a crotch. And I'm not a woman. I don't have that anatomy, but I would always think, God, the zipper rubbing in those areas seemed like it'd be really uncomfortable. And, and I remember, who was it? One of my classmates talked about sneaking out of her house, one night to go to a party, and she was wearing those pants, and she couldn't get back into the house with those pants. So she's out there unzipping them, and so putting them into two halves and throwing them into the house, and then getting into the house just before her parents walked in. So yeah, I don't know if they had a name. So if anyone's watching this and remembers those pants, if they had a name, please let me know. I need to know that. And then for guys, I thought it looked great on women. I hated guys wearing parachute pants. I couldn't do it myself. Thank God there's no evidence of me ever wearing parachute pants. I know it was a very popular trend, but and it would work. The hard rockers would wear parachute pants. People that were into Culture Club and New Wave would wear parachute pants. And for guys, I just could not stand them.
I think I actually owned a pair of parachute pants. I think one or two. They didn't see a lot of mileage. And I think the pants you're talking about, I think they're called dittos.
Dittos. Okay.
Yeah, I'll have to go look that up after, but I think that's what they were called.
So the same $50 that Lewis was offering for a picture of me in that half shirt goes, I'll raise it to 100 if we get a picture of him in those parachute pants. So reach out to me, let me know, make yourself $100. And those people that are really good at doing the computer stuff and I don't want anything that's edited. I want real actual photos. All right. I don't want anything photoshopped. So yeah, we'll see. Do you know if anything exists of you wearing those parachute pants?
Seriously doubt it. Seriously doubt it.
And you don't have them anymore? I know you. You keep everything.
I do, but I do not have those. But you're right, I do keep everything.
Yeah. All right. Well, since are you gonna stay in the fashion realm here, or what else you got for me?
Where am I taking folks here? Okay, I'll take it to more of a somber note. AC/DC was one of my first bands. They were my first band, and I remember I was absolutely devastated when Bon Scott died. So that's one of the things I'll say. I hated in the '80s is when he died. Like I said, like Van Halen, AC/DC, those are some of the first bits of music that Rush too that I was exposed to. Absolutely loved AC/DC, and when I'd heard he died, I couldn't believe it. So that's something I hated from the '80s, and I still think that AC/DC with Bon Scott is much better than Brian Johnson. Although Brian has carried the torch well. I still really like the original stuff.
That's a good one. If I had thought of something like that, I had similar feelings when Randy Rhodes died. I remember coming home from middle school and my mom telling me that, I had a call from my buddy Bill and that one of my favorite guitar players had died. And all I remember thinking is, please don't let it be Randy Rhodes. And of course, sadly, it was Randy Rhodes. And that, I'm not one of those people that really gets affected by celebrity deaths normally. It doesn't bother me. It's not somebody I knew, but he was the same thing, such a huge influence on me on my guitar playing. I still watch videos to this day of him performing, and yeah, that was a huge loss, as was Bon Scott. I really enjoyed and preferred AC/DC with Bon Scott. Never got to see Bon Scott or Randy Rhodes perform, and yeah, that's an excellent one. But boy, did it take it down really quickly.
It did, and absolutely correct with Randy Rhodes as well. I mean, and it makes you wonder if these folks had stayed around, and what they would have done, and the additional music that would have been out there for everybody to enjoy. So, but yeah, I guess I did bring it down from 100 to like -5.
Yeah. On the plus side, Randy Rhodes was just inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which he should have been there right when it opened in my book. But that was good. And his school is still there to this day, right where close to where I work. I've gone by there a few times. I've always wanted to go in. I've actually talked to his brother. I've talked to his sister. His sister owns a winery out here, and so to this day, I still have a bottle of Randy Rhodes wine that I will never open.
Very cool. Very
All
cool.
right. Well, I'm on. God, after that, where do I go? Well, I guess I have one more, and this one is, won't be as intense as what you just brought up. I hated commercials in the 80s because to me it seemed like they weren't trying to do anything except get the newest tagline, get merchandise out of it. It had nothing to do with the product, and it drove me nuts. I'm talking about to you, Spuds MacKenzie. I'm talking about the Noid. Avoid the Noid. Excuse me if you
Annoyed.
have any gray poupon. I'm Mr. Microphone. Hey, good looking. We'll be back to pick you up later. And where's the beef? I have a beef with all of that. I couldn't stand that. Those commercials drove me nuts. And it was kind of strange. I found out that the reason that they stopped doing the Avoid the Noid commercials was there was a man with the last name of Noid. And apparently he had some mental illness, and he thought that those commercials were telling people to stay away from him. I forgot where it was in the United States, but he took people hostage at a Domino's Pizza and ultimately committed suicide over it. Boy, talk about bringing it down again. But some interesting facts, and yeah, so those commercials, did way more harm than good, and they drove me nuts. Where's the beef? I couldn't stand that. That where's the beef? I couldn't any of that stuff, and it just Spuds MacKenzie. I mean, we're trying to use this cute dog to sell alcohol, and and then you'd see the shirts and the merchandise and for it, and half the time you wouldn't even remember what the product really was. I mean, I just mentioned all those things, and how many people would know what corporation that was for? Do you remember what Where's the Beef was for?
I want to say it was Wendy's, but I'm not sure.
Okay, you're right, but you're not sure.
I was
How
not sure.
about Spuds MacKenzie?
Spuds MacKenzie was for beer, right? It was for Budweiser.
I thought it was Bud Light, but I'm not
Was it
sure.
Bud Light? Okay, well,
Yeah, all
Budweiser,
right.
Bud Light, in the ballpark.
Yeah, all right. Oh, and I also hated the California Raisins. That's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think we have to delve into what they were, but God, they even had an album. Do you remember that? The
I
California Raisins had an album.
I don't remember the album, but I remember them being a huge phenomenon, like stuffed animals, or you could buy the plastic figurines or whatever. It was over the top. I do remember that.
And I
And
know one of your friends mentioned we should do a discussion on commercials, and I saw that after I had already had my list. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not talking about these other than this because I can't stand those 80s commercials. And I'm going to find you that California Raisins album, and I'm going to send it to you. You're welcome. You can keep that in cellophane as well.
you
But
took the words right out of my mouth, man.
but yeah, so that would be my list of 5 things I hated from the 80s. So you get your last pick here. Come strong with it.
Excellent. I just want to dovetail off of the 80s commercials things. I hated the one that was for shampoo that was and they'll tell two friends, and they'll tell two friends, and
And
so
so
on,
on, and so
and
on.
so on, and so on. Do
And
you remember what shampoo it was for?
Breck, I don't know.
I think it was Fabergé. I'm not
Oh.
100% sure. Breck
Oh.
sounds like it could be right,
So
though.
why are you questioning me? Give me the quiz if you don't have the answer.
I'll look it up.
All right, good to know. But yeah, I can't stand those. So what you
Okay.
got for me? End on a high note. Don't bring this down any further.
All right. I'm hoping you're familiar with this. It was a cartoon in the 80s, and the cartoon itself was rather annoying. But there was this one character on it that was just horrible. The cartoon was called Thundercats. And the one character that I'm talking about was this like miniature cat looking thing with a weird looking tail called Snarf. And it would just walk around and it would say like, oh, Lionel, I've got to do this. Snarf, snarf, snarf. And it was annoying. Oh my God, dude. It was horrible. You've got to look it up on the internet if you don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, I don't know what you were talking about, but boy, was if it's anything like what you just described, I hated it already.
It's exactly how I described. He'd go over and like at the end of every sentence, he'd go, snarf, snarf, snarf. It was like this little cat looking thing, like hybrid alien twit. It just horrible. Look it up. Look it up.
All right, I will look up Snarf. Well, thank you for not ending on a complete downer. My God, that was a lot to pull out of. So, so believe it or not, I didn't think we'd come up with this much stuff that we hated from the '80s because usually, that is far and away our favorite decade. We've lived through a lot of them, and I didn't think we'd come up with that much stuff we disliked. So there were things we didn't enjoy in the '80s.
Absolutely. I've actually got more on the list here. So if we wanted to ever do a part two, I've still got more material.
Things we hated in the '80s. Electric Boogaloo. I like it. Maybe we can do it. Crap, there is another one. Write that down. Anyway, all right. Anything you want to add before we call it a night on this one?
No, this is a very interesting one. It up, down, up, down. A lot of fun. They all are.
All right, brother. Well, thank you guys for watching. If there was something you hated in the '80s and you want to tell us about, please put it in the comments section. Love to hear about it. And if there's anything you disagree with what we disliked in the '80s, love to hear about that as well. So please comment on it. We've gotten some suggestions for future episodes. We really appreciate that. Keep it coming as well, and hopefully we can get to some of them. All right. So I'm John. That's Lewis. Thank you guys very much.
Peace.